Okay, welcome guys, welcome. So today with me, I'm with Cilna Steyn. Cilna Steyn is the Managing Director of SSLR Incorporated. A little bit about Cilna, she completed her LLB degree at Unisa, after which she was admitted as an attorney in 2007. She co-founded Steyn Steyn Attorneys, where she began to specialize in evictions. She regularly represents training sessions where she advises group of rental agents and private landlords on matters relating to landlord and tenant disputes and broader scope property-related matters. She also acts on a panel of experts for the Law Society of Africa's Legal Education and Development. She presents seminars on behalf of LSSA, lead educating attorneys nationally on eviction procedures and rental claims. She is one of the drafting attorneys of TPN, Tenant Profile Network, Residential Lease Pack. Cilna authored Cilna authored the Landlord's Guide to Property and Rental Eviction in 2015 and regularly publishes articles in newspapers and peer-reviewed magazines. She also appears in television, radio, and participating in discussion relating to property law, in particular evictions. Cilna is an author for LexisNexis on the topic of lease and eviction. Cilna Steyn, thank you for joining us today.
Wow, that was an introduction. Usually people just say Cilna Steyn.
Well,
I had to sit through and smile for all of that, like.
So you're realizing how much work you've done already.
Exactly, I can just leave now. It's like that was enough.
Like seriously, this is a lot of work that you have done in the amount of years, and I mean, it shows the commitment, the experience, and obviously where you are as a president, that you're very, very qualified. So I think this is a very interesting bio, and every time I read people's bios, I keep learning so much about things I don't know. That's number one. And number two, I keep realizing that, look, this is not just a destination, it's a journey. You know what I mean? I mean, for you, when you got admitted as an attorney in 2007, you thought, okay, wow, I just made it this stage. And then now there was a stage 2 that you had to go through. And then now you co-founded a company. And then now you're doing all this, awesome stuff, with the TPN, with LexisNexis. Actually, LexisNexis is actually, all of these companies are all big and huge companies that we, get to familiarize ourselves on a regular basis. And I think it's a very, very good thing to show that you've been doing a lot of work, and it's been a journey for you to get from where you are to where you are today.
Yes, and I'm happy you say that, because I actually just had a conversation now, just before we started, with one of my good friends, Bruno Sumal, who's also an eviction expert. And we were talking through potential scenarios and student accommodation. And it's such an exciting time to be alive, because in normal attorney life, we have pretty much black and white law. We have the Rental Housing Act, we have the Prevention of Illegal Evictions Act, and things are pretty static. I mean, it might, to the untrained eye or ear, seem like we have this amazing, weird things that we do. But the truth is, it actually gets pretty boring to be a lawyer, doing the same things over and over. And suddenly there's this thing where none of us have the answers. So we can have like hours and hours conversations around these things. And I'm very, very fortunate to have other eviction experts like Bruno, like Greg Vermaak, guys like that, and we get together and we find ways in law to get us through a situation where we are now. And it's really such a fun time to be here. And exactly to your point about my bio, I never think that, as much as you said, it's a journey to get from where I was to where I am now. My bio obviously starts from about 2002, when I left school, and until now, it's been close to 20 years after school. Yes, when I just said that, the penny dropped on my side as well, that I'm not 16 anymore. But because I think I'm my brain doesn't know how old I am, so I'm always surprised when I realize how long I've been doing what I'm doing. But the point I'm trying to make is, nothing that we ever do is our end destination. We should never, the moment you've fulfilled your purpose, there's no reason to be here anymore. So it's a constant journey. Every day you open your eyes, it's a sequence of choices that you are making. And the moment you have a destination in your head, when you achieve that, there's the risk is too high to accidentally fall into a space of mediocrity. Almost slightly complacent. If you thought, I want to be a property investor with a buy-to-let portfolio of X amount of properties. You achieve that. Okay, now what? Like, are you now just going to hang out and spend the rental money? That would be super boring. I don't think we should ever live our lives with a destination in mind. I think we should live our lives with journey in mind. Hey.
No, I fully understand. And I mean, the reason why I also emphasize the point that it is a journey, it's never a destination, is because I also was one of those people who thought, this is going to be a destination. I'm going to get to this point, and then I don't have to do nothing. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But I keep, evolving as a person and wanting to do new things and trying and expanding and growing myself as a human being. So when I meet people who continuously on that journey to, figure out, how they can reach their better potential of who they are, I think that's a very, very important thing, and it's very, very good to be celebrated out there. And that is what we should be celebrating as people, to say, look, just don't be focusing on getting to a specific place, love where you are, and also appreciate that, and just, grow as you go. But I have a list of questions that I'm going to be asking you regarding to the legal impacts of COVID-19 on real estate. But before we get into that, and before I give you a chance to also give us a little bit of how you got into this journey to become the director of SSLR today, and we get into the main topic of the impact. I wanted to start this question, this live stream with the question that, what was the thing that you learned through and during this time of the lockdown that you think maybe you were not aware of before we got into this current?
You're going to have to be a bit more specific on the question. In which regard?
No, well, I mean, for example, I was talking to a friend of mine. He was saying, okay, he just learned that as people, we sort of need each other as a community. That is something that every time he comes in from home, from work, he didn't realize it. You know what I mean? He just went from work and he got in home, say hi to the neighbor, and then, as a similar routine like that. So now you're just realizing how everybody's connected, how we all need each other as a community. And of which is something that we were sharing. Was like, wow, we get so busy and we think this is a normal life, but what is actually the normal life between, what we choose as normal and what we can create as normal? That's where I think I'm asking the question from, to say, is there any new thing that you thought, okay, wow, I was not realizing this thing before the lockdown? And I mean, this is also bringing like some sort of lessons to most of us, like I just mentioned.
Yes, so definitely. So both in my personal life, definitely discovered stuff that I wouldn't have guessed. Like, I am one of those weird, every morning at 5 o'clock, I'm in the gym and I have a proper, very regular gym training session. And suddenly I don't have a gym to go to. So I've discovered that it's really actually potentially even better to train at home, because I've been getting into things like my cardio. Suddenly I can't do normal elliptic trainer or your typical gym kind of cardio. So what I'm doing, and I'll tell this story, and I know you're recording it, so it's not like I can pretend in future I didn't say this. But what I found, and now I'm giving a secret on exercise as well. I've got my earphones in my ears, my gym earphones, not these. So Bluetooth earphones in my ears, and I dance like a white girl. So it's sad. Luckily nobody can see it, but I dance for exactly half an hour a day. And it's beautiful cardio. I can actually get my heart rate almost as high as I can when I box, because I can't box either. So now I'm dancing. And it's amazing cardio, but the spin-off on that is not just the cardio. It makes you happy. It makes you more positive if you dance, if you sit around and you do like exercise because you see on Facebook everybody's exercising, but you're hating every second of it. Rather just let it go, but just dance, just get some exercise in. You don't need to do like the weird yoga poses where you turn yourself upside down and inside out. You can get things done that makes you happy, and part of that was also what I realized is the value of really meditation and just getting calm, just getting still. Israel, you've known me for quite some time, and I think you know me quite well. I'm always busy, and I'm busy with so many things, and this has forced me to calm down a little. I haven't worked as hard as I am currently in my life. I am working every single day, 15, 16-hour days. I'm extremely busy. This is why I'm sorry. I just realized I'm wearing a t-shirt for a webinar. I'm so sorry, but that's sort of where I am. I just go like foo, 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 and very long hours, very exhausting. And at the same time, I've discovered the value of stillness. Because in that, I wouldn't survive 15, 16-hour days under immense stress right now, while I still need to keep my mind clear enough, because let's be fair, I know the industry, a very big portion of the industry, especially on the rental side, are looking to us for guidance in a time like this. So now is not a time for me to be like, oh, I'm sorry guys, I was a little tired, so I didn't apply the law right. We need me sharp. We need me pretty much sharp. And of all the time in my career, probably this is the most important time for me to be the sharpest version of myself. So I've discovered meditation, and I've discovered the value of, I've always meditated, but the true value of getting still, getting quiet, spending 20 minutes in silence instead of just going actually gives you a lot more time and a lot more clarity of your mind to get through a lot of things. So that's, and I must say on my business, I discovered that my team is even more resilient than I thought. I knew I had the best team in the world, but now through this time, the way my team is handling this, I honestly, I get a lump in my throat if I think about them and the way they are functioning as a team. Some of them can't work. And the guys that can work are carrying the guys that can't. We refuse to go on no work, no pay. We work together so everybody can get paid. Not full salaries, but we are doing what we can as a team to ensure we leave no one behind. And everybody is so kind, so caring for each other. And I can just, I've always loved my team very much, but I must say I respect them more than I ever had.
No, I fully understand. And then one thing I picked from you is you had a moment of discovery about a few things that you might have overlooked, and a little bit of adapting that we all have to do because of this pandemic. So I think that's sort of the mindset that I also wanted our investors to get from today, to say sometimes different times requires different thinking. You know what I mean? So there might be some sort of things that we can learn from this. It can't all be bad. There must be some good somewhere, and then we have to figure that out. Maybe you just needed to work on, your side business. Maybe you just needed to work on investing in yourself. Maybe you just needed to work on restructuring your portfolio. Maybe you just needed to work on doing something that you need so you can take it to the next level as an investor. As you overlooked, as you said, another thing that you mentioned that's very important is the team you have at this time. There's obviously some people are bailing out. Not everybody is going to be able to deliver. Some people's jobs are threatened, but if you can, get companies and people and the right team that like you do, then you're gonna be able to make it through this uncertain time. And also another thing about your team, every time you call your team and your firm, you refer it as awesome. That's why I even wrote the awesome firm when I was doing the post there. So I can imagine and I can see why they're being awesome through the pandemic too, because I worked with them before and I know how they work. But for all my attendees here who don't know you, who don't know your team and the awesome SSLR firm, can you tell them?
I love that.
Can you tell them a bit about who was Cilna Steyn before SSLR, and also, I'd also just like to ask a question of, there's so many laws that you could have done, corporate, bankruptcy, whatever. You chose to do property laws, and you chose, look, I'm just going to be dealing with investors. and doing deals, doing evictions, doing all this stuff. How did that come about, and when did that happen, and why? That's what I'd say. So it's just like a little bit of you introducing yourself to my audience today.
Oh wow, that's a fun question to answer. Yeah, so I don't think I chose property law. I think it chose me, and I'm actually quite. I actually honestly think so. Even now, I always wondered why. Until now, it makes sense. I potentially have one of the weirder personality makeups that you've ever seen. So I'm extremely positive, regardless of the situation. I can see factually that something is quite tough, and I'll be positive about it. It's just the way I am. And at the same time, I have a very deep sense of empathy. I can put myself in somebody else's shoes quite easily without even thinking about it. So when I was done with university, I said I will never practice as an attorney for a day in my life. This is what I said. And this was that must have been about 2005, 2006. I then finished my degree, and when I was done, I got married, and I said I'm not gonna do this. I don't enjoy practicing law, because I did my articles at a third-party firm, and it just didn't blow my hair back. It's super boring. I'm a very creative, right-brained person. So to be forced into left-brain lawyer thinking wasn't my thing. I didn't enjoy it at all. So I got admitted as an attorney, and I started working as a financial advisor for Old Mutual. And that wasn't my thing either. I'm not a good employee, so I hated that. And I was busy moving to Nedbank as a financial advisor when the 2008 recession struck. And my ex-husband then got accepted retrenchment from the firm where he was. And obviously he's also a lawyer, which probably explains the X on the husband there, right? So we then started Steyn Steyn because he took retrenchment, and I thought, well, this sounds like fun. Let's start a law firm. And we started Steyn Steyn. I was 24 at the time, and I had no idea what I'm doing. I was like, oh, this sounds like fun. I've had like a bunch of businesses by that time. My first business I had when I was 6 with pigs. It was really some of the better money I've made, and I had chickens and grew up on a farm, so I sold vegetables to the people on the farm. I had a bunch of businesses, so I wanted to do that, and I got into this firm, and it actually happened by accident. I had a divorce, and obviously I started the firm with my ex-husband. So Ben had 2 evictions, and I had a divorce. And I got halfway through the divorce consultation, and I was like, this is not my thing. I do not enjoy this. So I said to Ben, you take the divorce, you can give me any matter that you have that you don't want. And he said, well, I have 2 evictions I don't want. And this was 2009. So evictions was still a very, the implementation of PI and the Cape Killarney case and things like that was still very foreign to attorneys. So I just would have done anything not to do a divorce. And it turned out to be 2 evictions. And I figured it out. And the Law Society took note of the way I did that. And they were pretty impressed, because apparently I was one of the few attorneys that figured out how to do evictions then, which was very weird, because for me, it was just like the next obvious thing to do. And from there, it just grew. And Ben already left the firm in 2015. And then we got divorced as well. And SSLR, Steyn Steyn Leroux, Elise Leroux was also one of our directors. She's running with Expello at this stage. And I have other directors with me now, Yaku and Nick, which is fantastic. And the firm looks very different, and exclusively specializing in property. So it was really by accident, a 24-year-old that had no idea what's going on around her, that just didn't want to do a divorce. And here I am, 13 years later, being seen as the authority on rentals. And honestly, when I look at it, my ego is luckily there, where I don't think it's something cool. I think the universe is very intentional, and I think I was made for a time like this. I think everything led up to now where I can really serve the industry and I can be helpful.
100%. So what I'm getting from your story is you as somebody who is just a 24-year-old who is just focusing on what she's doing and following her intuition. You know what I mean? So you were following your intuition and say, okay, you can't do divorce laws. And I know a lot of people who make a lot of money with divorce law. And you sort of drifted towards property law. So coming back to property law, some of the main points we're going to be discussing today include rental payments and eviction. We're going to be touching on the effects of COVID-19 on the rental payments and eviction. We'll be discussing the deposit utilization agreement, which is something you're working on with TPN. You'll also just give us a little bit of what you guys are doing on that and what is included and how investors can be able to benefit from that during the lockdown. And also some other tools like rental deferred agreements and any other tools that investors can be able to put together and thrive in this uncertain times. My opinion, though, on rentals is that I know that all the rentals from commercials to residential landlords are going to have a hit. Why? Because restaurants are out of businesses. The manager at the restaurant is out of business. The retailers, some of them, I don't think they have enough cash flow to last, the whole lockdown. That means that if you have somebody who's a manager there, who is a manager at the restaurant, who maybe might just be a waiter, who maybe if you have any affordable housing, that might be an issue. And then at the same time, now if you have a whole store as a tenant, then you might be also losing out on that. And what I'm also seeing is, meaning that there's no way on this value chain, as we're coming back to say, we all, are a community, we all feed off each other. So meaning that if we don't help those guys who don't have the jobs from the bottom, then they can't be able to help the guys who are at the stores, and it's going to be a little bit of a chaotic thing that's going to be happening there. But one thing that I know is that there are solutions out there, including the ones that you're working on, the deposit utilization agreements and some other tools that investors can use. And as you said before, I haven't spoken to Bruno yet, but I've been speaking to my friends and a lot of my investors that we're currently working with. They're all investing in student accommodation, strictly a little bit more accredited. Why? Because when this thing is all over and done, if you have cash students, the parents are in threat of losing a job, after this, the lockdown. So meaning that the only option if you have as an investor, if you want to diversify your risk a bit and be able to have some cash flow, then you might as well just get a little bit of accreditation accommodation. Why? Because you'll be getting paid directly from the university. So those are the ideas that I wanted to touch on a little bit later, but I just wanted you to give you the floor to, take us through all the points of today about the payments and deposit rentals and the rental deferred agreements. Yeah.
Brilliant. So where I actually start these conversations every time is, I think initially, just after the national state of disaster was declared, so say the 16th, 17th, 18th of March, there was still a bit of hope that we're going to be able to get through all of this without a financial punch in the face. There was still this little glimmer of, I told you I'm overly positive. So there was still that. And until we started realizing, okay, well, businesses won't be able to trade. This is just not how it's going to work. Schools are going to be closed. Businesses will be closed. Malls will be closed. Everything's going to be closed. So how does this look? What does this look like for us? For instance, my firm, the courts, we can't issue new proceedings. So my personal, my own company's revenue dropped to, if we are lucky, about 7% of what we normally do. That's a killer for most businesses. And to top it all off, all of this happened in March. Jan-Feb is the recovery month every year, and March is usually the month that you need to start building again. And this March just punched us in the face right there. It's like, no, not this year, love. This year is going to be the real year where we see if you are tenacious enough for this. So what's interesting is when we started working on the documentation, we were still having protection of the landlord in mind, because I only act on behalf of landlords. And the realization came pretty quickly that neither landlord or tenant would be able to go through this without taking some financial knock. And luckily now, with us being in recession, and it's such a disaster right now, everybody knows they're going to lose money. It's not a thing that nobody is going to go through this unharmed financially. And on that, I know I say it with a smile on my face, and the reason I'm doing that is, let's be fair, guys, the monetary system and the way the world economy was working, and still sort of is trying to work, wasn't working anyway. We need a complete reset in all of this. And I think this is exactly it. I think this is where we are. I think we're on a forced reset of the world economy. So if the starting point of all this documentation is accept the fact that we are in a global crisis, this is not a South African thing. Our government is one of the governments in the world that's outperforming the rest by far. Our government, we can say a lot of things about our government, and we can talk about corruption and everything, but this is not the time. If I look at our government and we compare to a bunch of the other first world leader countries, I look at President Ramaphosa and I'm like, yeah, that's our guy. We have him. And I think people need to appreciate this. We can't weather everybody against this. Actually, we can't weather anybody against what's happening now. And the moment that appreciation happens, that everybody is going to suffer financial loss in this situation. What we are trying to preserve is human life. This is what we're doing. Then suddenly money shouldn't be that relevant. So as long as money is the focus, you're going to struggle to get through this time. It's a very harsh fact. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to put tools in property investors' hands to soften the blow, but there will be a blow. There's no way that a landlord is going to walk out of this unharmed unless, and I'm saying this, I know it's a cold fact to realize, the only landlords that will walk out of this, property investors that will walk out of this financially unharmed, are the people that are not appreciating the fact that the tenants and the other people that they are doing transactions with are suffering as well, and we need to save them. If you are in it for yourself right now, yes, you might be able to walk out of this financially unharmed, but I don't think this is what we should be doing. We have a principle in our law, which is entrenched in our law, being the principle of Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is a very important principle in our law, and I think Ubuntu is essentially the part of our law that will dictate the way the courts will approach this situation and the relationships between people. The principle of Ubuntu will shine more than ever before, because the truth is, a lot of people don't know that Ubuntu is a legal principle as well. So if you as the landlord now, with a small retail mall, for instance, you know the shops are closed. The only one that's open is the spa in the corner. That's the only one. He's trading. It's not trading at full capacity, but at least he's trading. Okay, cool. He can pay rent. But the hairdresser that already struggled financially all the way from last year, to force that tenant right now to pay full rental, cancel the lease agreement, evict as soon as lockdown is over, and then chase that guy for money until, kingdom comes. That's not humane, and that's not in the spirit of Ubuntu. We shouldn't be doing this right now. So the landlord that appreciates, I have expenses as well. This is my business. A lot of our clients, property investors, that's their business, and I'm quite sure a lot of the people in the audience, property investment is your business. So if you can't, and you are seriously not expected to say, oh, shame, poor tenant, you don't have to pay anything, because then your business will die. But we need to meet each other halfway. And the documentation we drafted, it was done in collaboration between SSLR, TPN, and Fullard Meyer Morrison. And the documents we drafted, Fullard Meyer Morrison drafted the commercial documentation. So commercial, retail, industrial was drafted by William Fullard. And then the residential side, I personally drafted the documentation. So the contracts that you will find in the TPN rent recovery pack, by the way, it's free of charge for anybody to use. Don't have to be any one of the parties that was involved in this. Don't have to be a client, don't have to register. We don't even want to know who you are. You just click and download and use. Ezra, I'm quite sure you will share a link to that, right? For everybody to use. So you're more than welcome to use it. So the first document that you're going to use is the tenant income declaration form. So be it a residential tenant or a commercial tenant, two different forms to show the reason why they can't be paying their rent. And the landlord is entitled to ask for proof of that. There's no tenant in the world that will be receiving a reduced salary without a notice from their landlord. I mean, that just won't happen. So landlords are entitled to ask for proof of the content of the income declaration form. Then the landlord and the tenant has to have a conversation. There's no law currently, and I cannot see that it will happen, that says that a tenant should not pay rent. Anything that you see that says that is fake news, guys. There is no regulation saying that landlords should not collect rent. There's not a moratorium on evictions per se. There is a regulation specifically that says the courts will only deal with matters pertaining to essential matters. And it specifically says that evictions aren't essential. So it's not a moratorium in the sense of nobody may be evicted, because we're seeing evictions happening. But this is in the sense of enforcement of the National Disaster Management Act. It's not true evictions in the true sense of the word. So please don't let the media confuse you with stuff. The evictions that you are seeing being done by COJ did one, city of Durban, what's Durban's municipality? Now look at us now, not knowing. City of Cape Town did one. So there's a bunch of the metropolitan municipalities that enforced regulations in a way that it looks like an eviction. So, but it wasn't true evictions. So don't let that confuse you. There's no moratorium, but we can't approach court with new matters. So we can draft, and we do. We get quite a lot of eviction instructions at this stage. We're drafting and we're lining them up. So the moment the court opens, we can issue those eviction instructions. But what we need now is landlords and tenants has to talk to each other and say, listen, Mr. Tenant, I have this problem. I can't allow you to not pay at all. I need to pay my bond. I need to pay my rates and taxes. We need to pay here. How can you pay? What can you do? Because the truth is, only the people that was retrenched and the people that were that's on no work, no pay, or the sole proprietor that has no income, those are the only people that really can't pay anything. The guy on a slightly reduced rental can still pay a portion. So landlords and tenants has to talk to each other now and find a middle ground. So the one contract we have is the rent deferment agreement. In this agreement, I drafted it to be extremely agile. I've defined a term, recovery date, and recovery date will be the date that the national state of disaster is uplifted. So it's very important, guys, to appreciate there's a huge difference between the national state of disaster and the lockdown. The national state of disaster was declared in terms of the Disaster Management Act on the 15th of March. And in terms of the Disaster Management Act, that national state of disaster will last for a period of 3 months unless it's terminated earlier or extended to a later time period. So at this stage, no talk yet of extension of the national state of disaster. To be quite honest, I would be very surprised if we out of a national state of disaster by the 15th of June. I honestly cannot see that happening practically. So with that in mind, I drafted it in a way that you don't have to redo the contracts the entire time. So the rent recovery agreement, what we are saying, the rent deferment agreement is the landlord and tenant agrees that the tenant will pay a reduced rental for a certain period of time, and he will then repay that money that he didn't pay during the national state of disaster over a period of time which the parties agreed to in terms of the agreement. The way I drafted it is repayment of that money will only commence on the first day of the third month following recovery. So say for argument's sake, we do end the national state of disaster on the 15th of June. From the 1st of July, the tenant will pay full rent again, but from the 1st of September, he will pay full rent as well as the arrear amount. Now let's be realistic. The chances are that some of the tenants will not be able to repay that because I think the economy, I know the economy is going to look very different after this. So landlords need to appreciate this. You are accepting a risk by allowing your tenant not to repay. We should get judgment in terms of these contracts easy enough, but the truth is we do not want to kill each other financially. So as a landlord, my advice would be, don't drop the rent to a point where it would be a financial killer for you if the tenant can't repay. You need to appreciate with a little bit, there must be a little portion in your heart where you know, if I don't get repaid on this, I'm not sacrificing myself, because nobody's asking anybody to sacrifice their own businesses, but we are saying cut on your profit, cut even below a break, even as long as it doesn't kill you. But you need to know there is a risk that the tenant won't be able to repay because the judgment doesn't give you money in your bank account. And then the other agreement we have is the deposit utilization agreement. So it was slightly contentious for a while. There was a bit of a different viewpoints from attorneys that felt you can't use the deposit. Luckily, after enough conversations between a lot of specifically rental expert attorneys, the answer is actually quite simple. Section 5.3 of the Rental Housing, 5.3c of the Rental Housing Act says the landlord may request a deposit. So if he did request a deposit initially, the parties may always agree to vary the terms of the agreement. The landlord may agree to release the deposit. Obviously, if the landlord agrees to release the deposit, he's exposing himself to risk for not just damage caused to the property that he won't be able to reclaim from the tenant. He's also exposing himself to the only cash he has available for, say, for instance, lockdown gets extended to September, or the national state of disaster gets extended to September, October. A landlord might not want to use all the money and the only money that is available in this transaction. So be cognizant of that fact. And if you can, if you financially can do something like that, you really can. So have a look at the agreements that is to your disposal. Appreciate the risk that you as the landlord are facing by allowing the tenant to either pay reduced rent or to use the deposit. You are not obliged in law to do this, but like I said, Ubuntu is a legal principle. So in the spirit of Ubuntu, I would like to urge you to really look at where's your profit, where's your break even, and where can you and the tenant meet each other halfway and then use one of the contracts that satisfy that need.
So now, thanks a lot, Cilna, for giving us a deeper understanding in terms of all the solutions that you guys have together. So it seems like after hearing you talk, I feel like a little bit of a headache also just went off my head, because we're also thinking, okay, so this thing they said 21 days, nice, 21 more days. We're not sure how long it's going to take. It might take longer than expected. So meaning that if your tenant was able to pay this month, they might not be able to pay next month, and the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months. So we must also be ready for that. So last week I was sitting here with TJ and Kristen when we were speaking a little bit more of relationships we need to build with tenants. But I can also see now that we discussing the backside of how to deal with it contractually. You know what I mean? So I think that's where the main focus and I think that the thing that the part of the puzzle that was missing was for me specifically, but I'm sure all the investors who are attending today then also let us know where they were getting stuck. So what I'm getting is this rental declaration is important, and then you also mentioned the deferred agreement, which is like a payment plan to say, hey, look, you can pay me after this thing is done, but for now I'll have to, you know, service myself, and I can talk to my financiers, anybody else who's financing me. They'll also be understanding because of the emergency. So they can also be a little bit of flexible at this point. So, and then the deposit utilization. So I would say, if it was according to me, I would use the deposit utilization as the last resort, because it has a little bit of a risk involved. But I think, like, you know, the rental deferred agreement sounds a little bit like a more of a conversation I would have with anybody. And we just need to put it in right and say, hey, look, you don't have to be under pressure. You need to focus on if we have the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, focus on at least feeding yourself, your family, and all of those things, you know what I mean? Keeping the lights on and things like that for now. And then when you be able to make enough, then you can be able to pay up a little bit later. So in terms of order of priority, what would you advise investors to look at these tools and utilize them in what order?
It's such a good question. And the answer is, unfortunately, no, I can't, because
Okay.
I wouldn't say the deposit utilization agreement is your last resort. And that would mean that you prefer something else. And the truth is, every situation is unique. So
Yeah.
in a situation where you have a tenant that has potentially 2 household incomes, now we can talk about a reduced rental, so the rental deferment agreement, definitely for those guys. You can have a position where a landlord, and I've seen that, guys, I'm absolutely amazed with some of my clients that are in a financial position to allow their tenants not to pay for 3 months. I actually have a few clients that said, don't have to pay me at all for 3 months. If lockdown is extended, or if the national state of disaster is extended, then we need to pay reduced rent to go forward. So things are unique. Everybody is unique. So say, for instance, you have a situation where a tenant is a single income household and they are no work, no pay. And they haven't been working since pretty much, call it the 16th, 17th of March. No income at all. Landlord has a property that's fully bonded. He has to pay rates and taxes, and he has to service his bond. The rent deferment agreement isn't even an option for those parties. The only money that they have in that transaction is the deposit money. So that's why I'm saying I'm not going to give like a list. We do this, and then if that doesn't work, we go to because every transaction and every relationship, and even the same landlord and the same tenants relationship, could look different if it is a residential property compared to commercial. So what is this? And so it's a unique approach. That's why I was very, very happy with Mr. Ramaphosa saying on last week, Thursday evening, yeah, it's already been a week. What is this? This lockdown swallows up time. I swear it's amazing. It's already been a week. We said, guys, please don't enforce the principles of vis maior, force majeure, causa fortuitas, any one of those. Tenants, please don't enforce this, because you have a right in law, potentially, to not pay rent on a commercial, industrial, retail property because of the lockdown. But please don't enforce rights now. Talk to each other and find ways that we can keep the economy going and we can keep each other going. Now it's not the time to be in it for yourself. So my point with that is, I can't give you a list of what's going to be best. It unfortunately now is the time to open conversation. Now, not unfortunate, but some people don't like talking to their tenants or their landlord. You need to talk to each other and find a solution specific for your situation.
No, just, yeah, I fully understand. And I think that's another thing, that reality that we can't escape is just, getting on the phone, or actually I'm talking to these guys and finding out what's their issues. Because for example, for myself this morning, we got a guy who's like, he's a mechanic. So his shop has been closed for 2 months now because of this thing. And then he has no money for rent. And then now he can't also put anything on the table right now. So when you're talking to him, you're just putting him in a situation, even when you're asking him to pay half of the rent. So he's saying, if I go to work, I get arrested now. So what do you want me to do? And then you're like, okay, so what is going on is a little bit of, if you dig a little bit deeper, there's a few people who got arrested, or staff members who were working and they were out there So I think there are a few guys who are handling that, but we're not here to discuss that today. But I think I'm supporting the idea that it's Ubuntu time. It's about time we sit down and have that conversation. As much as it might feel, as you say, unnatural, as much as you might be using a middleman, use them too. As long as you can use them effectively, your agent can also be able to communicate that much better for you. You don't have to do it yourself. You can always delegate this. So with respect of time, and I think we're passing the 45 minutes mark, I just wanted to ask 2 last questions, and then we can open up for questions so our guests here today can be able to ask all the difficult questions they might have about what is going on right now. So the question, one more question is, what are the next steps for investors to ensure that they can thrive in this time? I think you mentioned a little bit of that in terms of how this is a very unique solutions or unique approach for the individual investor. But I'd also add on that to say if they need to find out how they need to structure or how they need to approach their unique situation specifically, and if we haven't covered that in this live stream, they can just obviously be able to contact you, and you can be able to help them with that. And then I think let's just skip to the last question, which would say, if this was your last interview, what would you say your legacy is, and what would you leave our viewers and the people you love and care about with? What would be your last words?
Yeah. It's scary that you say that, because Thursdays are my go stock up on fresh fruit and vegetables. So I need to go to Woolies after this. So I really hope this is not my last interview. But if it is, it was an honor.
Well, just make sure you have your mask and everything on, eh?
Exactly. No. So no, my message, and I think this is the message I'm giving at every time anybody asks me this, is now is not the time to be in it for yourself. Now is not a time to look after yourself. You have to, because you have to look after yourself to look after others. But there's this very selfish saying in the world that says, look after yourself first. It's pretty much like on a plane, right? If you crash, just get your own oxygen, make sure you're alive. And that is important. You need to make sure that you are good right now, physically and emotionally. Stay inside, stay healthy, exercise, meditate, eat healthy. Don't flip. I get so irritated right now with people saying like, everybody's going to leave quarantine so fat. I'm like, guys, we're not even eating junk food, eat healthy. But anyway, look after yourself and you should be fine. But now is not the time to look out for financial thriving. Financial survival will be crucial right now. And the guys that has their focus on financial survival, I promise you the goodwill that you are buying right now from your tenants, from your clients, from your strategic partners, from people your employees, everybody around you, the goodwill that you buy right now by focusing on financial survival, taking a hit to the face financially, but surviving this should be crucial. Focus on financial thriving and profiting right now. I promise you, this is the guys that will not survive this. Might thrive through this crisis, but afterwards, your reputation is the thing that's gonna carry you through. I mean, we all know there's a very big chance of going into a depression, and the truth is, with that in mind, brace yourself financially, but get used to living like you are living in a depression. Hold on to every cent that you can hold on to, and don't squeeze people now for money that doesn't have the money. You never ever want to leave your life knowing that you have harmed people financially to a destructive point just for what? It's money. And so I think if this is my last message to the world ever, guys, it's just money. It's really just money. Money is the thing that we use to keep score with, and whether it's Monopoly or real life, money is what we use to keep score with. It's nice to have it, and it's nice to win the end of the Monopoly game. We shouldn't be in it to win. We should now be in for each other, and we should value human life more than monopoly money, because let's be fair, money isn't really real. And if you can make that mind shift, that thriving and being successful, if you can take the money component out of that, and you can change your perception of success to being the person that leads this, knowing that you helped people and that you honestly did your best to help other people get through a very difficult situation, I think that is the measure of success. I don't think money should be the measure of success right now, because I don't think money is going to be a thing anymore. I've been saying the monetary system doesn't work anyway. We need to scrap this and start over with shells and little stones. And I think now's as good a time as any, right? We are forcing ourselves into that. So stock up on shells. That's basically my message.
No, I fully understand, and I appreciate that advice. I think what you're saying is a new definition of success, of helping people, is also what we're trying to do with this platform now, to get as many investors to get this information out there, get all the solutions out there, so people can, be able to make it through this time. So when, they can be able to thrive post-lockdown, because I don't think this is forever, and I think that's the reality. So we had this in the 40s, in the 30s, I think, and somewhere also in the past. We haven't learned, as human beings, one of the lessons I think I've learned so far is that we were not well prepared for something like this to happen again. And I mean, it happened in the past. So this is something that also for us, I mean, we're getting a lot of we're getting a little bit more prepared. There's a lot of innovation that's going to come out of this. There's a lot of things that are going to come out to help us, become a little bit much better for next time. But this is not going to be here for forever, and it's going to pass. The most important thing is, as you say, knowing how to navigate through this, how to, obviously be very conscious of your financials. And then also, because I mean, after this is done, and then you haven't, been looking out for opportunities, you haven't been upskilling yourself, you haven't been, figuring out what is your next move, then you're going to start planning while, people are starting to implement, starting to know which directions they're going to be going. And, I think this is a very good time for a lot of people to sort of figure out their direction in terms of a way forward. So I just want to open up the questions below to anybody who have any questions with regarding to what we discussed today, and then also the legal implications of COVID-19 on real estate investment. I see one question here from Princess. I'm just going to go into that just now, and we're looking for more questions now. And just on the questions, before we answer that, while you guys are also typing in more questions now, is that I'm going to be sending everybody an email of the rental recovery or the pack that you guys did with TPN. And I think it might be able to help a lot of investors who have attended this. So anybody who also keen on that, just type I in the chat box if you want me to email you one of these rental recovery from CPM. Just type I in the chat box so we can know who to email it to. Okay, so first question. Okay, Princess will send it to you.
Princess was super quick on that one. She's like, yeah, pick me. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you. We'll definitely send you guys the rentals. Is it pack?
I lost you there. You paused.
Is it called? Oh, okay. Is it called a rental relief pack or recovery pack?
Rent recovery pack.
Recovery pack. Okay, so rental recovery pack is going to be sent to the guys who send me an I on the chat box. Okay, so I see I Captain 23. Captain 23, we don't have your email address. Just please type me your email address there so my team can be sending this thing to you. Okay, so KK says great advice. Thank you, KK. And then we have thank you for highlighting the spirit of Ubuntu. I wasn't aware it's a legal principle. That's what Brian Joseph Mutungu on YouTube. Thank you, Joseph. And then Joseph, okay, Bunolo Mabuche also responded and said, Joseph, is because we are on a transformation journey and part of building blocks of ultimate democratic state is a principle of Ubuntu. Okay, so I think you can comment a bit on that, but let's just check a question here from Princess. She said, how can a tenant best approach their landlord residential with a bonded house, given that the banks are willing to have a conversation about the bond deferments. Is the landlord obligated to pass on the goodwill they would have received from the bank to their tenants? That is the first questions we have.
All right. So how to approach? Princess, my advice would be download the tenant income declaration form. So it's part of the rent recovery pack. Download that form, complete it. With the proof that you are receiving a reduced income, approach the landlord with that. Send an email and say, hi, Mr. Landlord, here is my application for my income declaration form. I can only pay half of my rent, or I can't pay rent at all, or whatever the situation is, and then open the conversation. Unfortunately, there is no legal obligation on the landlord to give you a rent reduction. So the hard truth is, if the landlord isn't in a financial position to give you financial relief, or even if the landlord is like a bad non-Ubuntu person, which could very well happen. That's a new term I just thought of. I think we should hashtag that.
Like a non-Ubuntu.
Exactly. Hashtag non-Ubuntu guy. I couldn't have said it with more disgust.
I'm going to put the title of this video. Don't be a non-Ubuntu landlord.
That should be our term. So if you have one of those landlords, Princess, unfortunately, if you then don't pay your rent, the legal position of the landlord would be to send a letter of demand, cancel the lease agreement, and then commence eviction as soon as lockdown is over. So that's the harsh reality. But in real life, I would hope that a landlord would come to the party if he can. Obviously, you can send him this webinar and explain that as well. Unfortunately, the situation out there is some landlords doesn't have the financial means to assist tenants as well.
No, I fully understand. I mean, the landlord-tenant relationship is a little bit of an issue because right now, landlords who are aware are going to be approaching the tenant, but the tenants who are aware, it's going to be a little bit of educating your landlord to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is sort of a solution we might have. And then that's why I think it's very important that everybody get the recovery documents also, so they can be able to discuss something they very well aware of how it works. And then they can also give him some framework so he can be able to, obviously work around that. So I don't know, Princess, I hope we managed to answer your question. Just let us know if we managed to do that.
And then the bond element, was that part of that question?
Yeah, the bond element was that he has an obligation to pay a bond. So let me just also go to the question again so I can be able to give you the...
Yeah, so how I got that question was, if the bank is giving the landlord a bond payment holiday, should he pass that goodwill on to the tenant? Am I right? It sort of sounds about right to the question. It's amazing. I can remember these things. Swear, when I do things like that, you would imagine I'm even a lawyer. How weird. So, no, unfortunately, the repayment holidays that the banks are giving, as much as they are doing that, that puts no obligation on a landlord to accept that. Because remember, as a homeowner right now, as much as the banks are allowing deferred payments for bonds, they're still charging interest, they're still charging everything. So the truth is, it's going to extend your bond repayment, and your bond is going to end up costing you way more if you do accept the payment holiday. Personally, I wouldn't use a bond payment holiday unless it's really, really necessary, because it's going to be more expensive. Even if the landlord does accept that, there's no obligation on the landlord to pass that goodwill onto the tenant. But that brings me back again to, wait for this, you're going to be surprised, Ubuntu. So that part of that would be, if there is an option available to the landlord to defer his bond payments, which would mean the tenant can pass on some relief to the tenant in a situation where the tenant has no income, property is fully bonded. I do believe that there is, at the very least, an ethical obligation on the landlord to at least consider the position he is in. and potentially accept the bond payment holidays. But at the same time, I would then feel that because it's a very dire, unique situation, that the tenant will have to come in on a bit of an assistance on the extra bond cost that the landlord will have because he had to take this deferment. So this is conversations that the parties should be having.
No, I fully understand. And I mean, this comes back to what you were saying about every unique situation requires a unique approach. So I can see that you're handling a lot of questions there. Oh, sorry. And Princess says, yep, well answered. Thank you very much. So she's very happy with how you answered the question. All right. And then we have a comment from Mahau Mamabulu saying, thank you, Ezra and Cilna, for an amazing webinar. And I agree, this is the time to think for everyone, I assume, and not yourself. This time will pass and we are stronger together than alone. True. I also agree with that. Do you want to say anything on that, Cilna?
No, I can just echo that. It's really true. And I think now is the time to get away from this, all the drama, negativity. Yeah, but why will government still extend? We can't survive like this. Everybody is doing the best they can, including government. And like I said, I'm really so happy about living in South Africa, because I think we're one of the lucky countries with our government. As much as it pains us, I'm one of the business owners who's suffering extreme financial harm. I'll be honest with you guys, just because we're not just investors but entrepreneurs as well. When I had to close my office door on the 26th of March, I closed it with a serious lump in my throat. And as I locked my front door, the thought did go through my head, will I be able to reopen this door again after all of this? It's a harsh, very serious reality, and we need to appreciate that we are all there. And if we appreciate the pain we are all experiencing, we can come together and alleviate the pain together, but 100% stronger together. And we need to stay home. It's a pain, and I'm so over it. I'm an extrovert on a whole new level. I don't do lockdown very well. And at least I have a cat and a dog to entertain me, but I'm not enjoying it either. I'm sacrificing my business as well. And if we all appreciate that we are all doing that, it's not just you. We can help each other.
Just to add on what you're saying, the lockdown is not working for anyone. I never thought getting a haircut would be a craving, I never thought I'll crave getting a haircut. I need to figure out or buy a machine or something and sort this out at home. So
at least what the lockdown is doing for me, the one thing the entire property industry now knows for a fact, that is that I am in fact a natural blonde. So if that is the one thing, if that's the one thing we get out of this, at least we've got that.
Okay, we're gonna be wrapping up just now, and then somebody, Tepang, asked, is this video going to be available on your site afterwards? Yes, it's going to be on YouTube. We're going to be putting it there until the end of lockdown. We want to help as many investors as we can to get this information, and that's why we're here. So please share it with as many people as you can. Let them get this information. I know a lot of people are stuck right now. They don't know what to do. They're not sure how to deal with their tenants, and they might handle it differently because of lack of information. So I think this is very, very important that we get this information to as many people as we can. And then, okay, so one more comment from Princess. She's saying that this was really valuable, as I am both a landlord and a tenant. I have a clear picture of perspective going forward. Sorry about that. The balance of Ubuntu and the profit is paramount. Thank you both. Thank you, Princess, for attending. We really, really appreciate your time here. We hope that we manage to add as much value as we can, and we sort of solve many of your problems. So I just wanted to wrap up this thing by saying that if anybody else really needs us to send them the rental recovery documents, please email me if you're on YouTube, because I won't be able to get your email from YouTube. But if you are registered through our site, then we can be able to get our team to send you all the recovery documents. And thank you very much, guys. If there's any other questions, just send it to me directly, and then I will obviously forward them to Cilna Steyn, or you can just post them on my page, anywhere else that you can be able to find me. But we are here to help landlords through this, COVID-19 pandemic, and obviously post-corona also. So thank you guys very much, and thank you, Cilna Steyn, for taking your time and joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Only a pleasure.
100%. Okay, thank you guys. We're going to be ending this live stream just now.